Good morning, everyone. Are we holding for another minute, or do you want to roll? We want to roll. I'm getting okay. I'm hearing the yeehaw. Let's do it. All right. Some of y'all know this song. Stand up. Let's get welcomed up here. Our souls and every other part of us. Right. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just where I'm supposed to be. Let's do it again. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just where I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just what I'm supposed to be. I'm in the right place at the right time, and I'm just what I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Thank y'all very much. So good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks, David. That's awesome. Get everybody all worked up and jiggered.
Circulations.
There we go. Good morning. Please stand up and take a minute and greet your neighbor. While we're settling back in, let's make sure that you take a moment and check in on Facebook if you'd like to, and also silence your cell phones so it doesn't disturb our gathering. Good morning. I'm Elaine Arnold, a member of Unity. Welcome to Unity of the Hill Country, where we offer a positive path for spiritual living. Let's give a warm welcome to this week's guest speaker, Miss Claudia Sullivan, and to David Rosenblatt, our musician. Yay, we're glad you're here. Please join me now in our opening prayer. As we join together in heart and mind to celebrate the presence of the divine, may we at peace, may we find the joy of the universe filling our hearts with love. May we experience health and wholeness on all levels, mind, body, and spirit. As well as our statement of faith, there's only one power and one presence active in my life and in the universe, God, the good, the omnipotent. Blessing the Christ candle. The Christ candle is lit, calling forth our awareness of spirit. As this light shines, we set our intention to awaken inspiration, guidance, and remembrance of our divine nature. May this flame remind us that the Christ light lives within us and among us. And if you'll join with me, our affirmation for our new minister, It is with thankful hearts that we attract the right and perfect minister for unity of the Hill Country. Welcome to your new home. Affirmative prayer is essential to the unity movement. We are honored to pray with you. All written prayer requests are sent to the 24/7 prayer vigil at Silent Unity. You can also call the number on the screen to have someone pray with you or submit prayers online. Let us now take a moment to hold space for all the prayers in our congregation, in our community, and in our world. We now turn our attention to our sacred prayer chest. Each name and request placed within it is held in the light of divine love and infinite wisdom. We affirm that perfect healing, guidance, peace, and joy are already at work in each life. We release these prayers into the care of Spirit, trusting all is in divine order. The Daily Word has been giving the worldwide unity movement a daily prayer since 1924. We join with millions of Daily Word readers throughout the world. Today's reader is Robin Stewart.
Not Mom?
Mama.
Mom.
Good morning, all you wonderful people. I love you. This morning's daily word is resilience. Courage. The affirmation that you can say with me is courage and strong. I am resilient. Everyone gets knocked down from time to time, and the choice is whether you give up or you get up. Getting up and gathering strength and desire to try again is resilience. Spiritual living helps me build it, claiming divine ideas in prayer, engaging the power of my imagination to envision my success, and using my wisdom and will to discern the best way forward and choose it all help me be resilient in the face of defeat or discouragement. Through the power of Christ within, I am willing to keep trying until I succeed. I understand setbacks happen to everyone. I do not let them deter me or take failed effort personally. I am strong, capable of doing what I set my mind to. I am resilient. In Corinthians 1:16-13, it says, keep alert, stand firm in your faith, be courageous, be strong. And our affirmation again, courageous and strong, I am resilient. Then there we go.
Thanks, Mama. Always entertaining. Please join me in affirming our mission statement: to live consciously, celebrating the divine potential in all, as well as our vision statement, revealing oneness in a world of universal peace, love, and abundance. And now, David will lead us in this week's special music, One with the Divine. Following that, we will settle into our time of meditation.
Thank you. This is kind of a combination congregational song as well as a special. A few weeks ago when I was here last speaking and playing, it was following the flood, and I was having trouble deciding what congregation song to do, so I said, I'll just write one. And so that's fine. I mean, I write a lot of songs, but and so I did, and I decided this last couple of weeks to expand it a little bit and turn it into more of a special. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 package today. But you're welcome to sing along with it once you get the vibe of it. And a couple of you have sung it before, part of it anyway. And then I'm going to move over to the piano and do a little meditation I Am song. So just so you know what we're doing. This song's about divine orders, you might guess. It's also about setting your intentions and
helping those in need. And we could all understand how that is around here these days. So.
Order is divine, the intention is mine. Raising the vibe can only be wise. It's as clear as the skies now. I find the time to let my light shine. We are one with the divine. We are one with the divine. Finding a way to let our light shine and help those in need. From the love that we are planting, hope like a seed. I let the good thoughts align in the present, not behind. Raising the vibe and this rhythm of life will be as clear and sublime now. It's surely the time to let our light shine. We are one as the divine, and I am one as the divine. Finding a way to let our light shine and help those in need. From the love that we are, we can surely succeed. Order is divine with presence of mind. Raising the vibe can only be wise. It's as clear as the skies now. I find the time to let my light shine. We are one with the divine. We are one as the divine.
Thank you. Start getting a little quieter now.
Take a moment to look at your hands and really look at your hands. Look at your palm, your fingers. Look gratefully at your hands and the veins that run along the top of your hands and the lines on the palms of your hand. Think lovingly about your hands and what they mean to you, the journey that they have gone with you on for this life. They may be calloused, they may be scarred, they may be soft, but your hands speak of your whole life. And think of all that you have done with your with your hands. You write, you touch. We have a crocheter here today. The crafts that you might have done, the things that you've held on to. Your hands are lovingly and creatively made, and they've been with you on this journey, and they tell the story of your life in a way that other parts of your body don't. For most of us, our hands look older than they did a few years before. We may take care of our hands, keeping them beautiful, or we may use them as instruments of work and they show that hardness. Just think for a minute and let one hand touch the other. Let one hand caress the other. They're a pair. They're in union together with you. Okay. O Lord, you have searched me and known me, even before a word is on my tongue. O Lord, you know it completely. If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in the grave, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning, your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. For it was you who formed my innermost parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am wonderfully and fearfully made. Wonderful are your works. I'd like for all of you to take in a good deep breath, and as you exhale it, just let a little bit of sound come through like an ah. So take in a good deep breath and let it out with a little sound. Ah. Okay. So today we're thinking about the omnipresence of God, which means basically that God is everywhere and God is in all things. We find God wherever we look, but we have to look. We find God in nature and in all creation. Next. Richard Rohr, who is a Franciscan priest, he has a spiritual retreat center in New Mexico, and I follow his newsletter every day. He's a wise, wise man, and he believes that nature itself is God's divine presence, that creation itself is the body of God. Creation predates the written word, and this can change how we relate to nature, to the world, and to ourselves. You know, when you think about it, if everything that we see and touch, especially in the environment, is the body of God, we treat it differently, or we should treat it differently. And as the earth becomes scarred, some because of man-made issues and some not, we mourn those scars, and we try to restore what we can, because this is a form of the body of Christ. Next. Another scripture. Then the Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. The Lord will pass by." There was a strong wind and a violent wind, rending the mountains and crushing rocks before the Lord. but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, there was fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. After the fire, a light, silent sound. And I think that's one of the first places that we can think about finding God in our own lives. It's in the silence. And silence is hard to find nowadays. You know, we have our phones, we have our TVs, we have the chatter that seems to be constant. I'm always a little distressed when I go to a restaurant and I'll see two people, sitting across the table, and they're not conversing with each other. They're looking on their phones, or they're texting a third party that's not there. So it's hard to find silence, but that's where we need to start. And we don't necessarily have to pray. We don't necessarily have to ask or tell or be. We just have to be silent and see what happens, see what comes into us, see if God will present God's self at that moment. The other day I was in my small garden, and I'm not afraid of wasps. So if you are, you may not relate to this story, but I was looking at my bumper crop of tomatoes, and this wasp flew by, and it flew by so close to the top of my hand that I could feel the wind from its wings. And it really struck me. I mean, I think of maybe hummingbirds sending a breeze, but that tiny little red wasp, and I could actually feel it on the top of my hand. And I had to stop for a moment and say, wow, this is something really special, that this tiny creature could make such a difference, that it could present itself and make itself known in that way. We find God in ourselves, in our bodies, as we hopefully did before, in our goodness, and even in our sinfulness. And we find God in one another. When we experience awe, that AWE, maybe in a sunset, in the Grand Canyon, in Niagara Falls, the birth of a child, or a lover's embrace, we are experiencing God in that time and place. All of this is God, and it surrounds us all of the time. We find God in the stranger. There's a wonderful story that a friend of mine told me years ago. Dorothy may know the story, but at my church we used to have coffee and donuts outside so that after church people could come by and have a chance to talk. And this woman was setting up the coffee and donuts before church was over. And she said, I smelled the man before I saw him. It was a homeless man that came walking down the sidewalk. And, she looked at him and offered him a donut and offered him a cup of coffee. And he took it. And then she said, have another donut if you want. And I think he grabbed 4 or 5 and stuffed them into his pockets. And she said, all of a sudden, he just embraced her. And she kind of stood there for just a moment. And as he released her and walked away, she thought to herself, there goes Jesus. There goes somebody that had a need, and I was able to fill it, but he touched her and she touched him in a special way. So sometimes we do find God in the stranger, especially if we stop and look for it. I find God in the H-E-B. I don't know that God necessarily shops at the H-E-B as opposed to the Kroger or, in a big city. But I was thinking the other day when I went, this is the biggest communion table in the town. And that's what it feels like sometimes when you go in there. Years ago, I had hip surgery and I wasn't supposed to bend and I wasn't supposed to lift, but I went on to the store to get some things, and I was going to buy 10 pounds of sugar because I have lots of hummingbird feeders, but I couldn't bend down to get it. And I just looked around, and there was some nice man that came and lifted it up for me. Many times in the dairy section, some of you may relate to this, I cannot reach the milk. It is back there, and there's no one in the back there to push it. So I just look around for some long-armed person, and there they are, One day I was at the checkout, and there was a young man bagging, and he seemed disturbed somehow. And so I just started a conversation. I said, are you having a bad day? And he said, is your mother still with you? And I thought, what a strange comment. And I said, well, no, not for a few years. And he said, well, mine died 2 years ago. But I guess, I don't know if that was the anniversary of her death or what, but I said, well, I'm so sorry. I said, do you need a hug? And he said, oh, lady, you're killing me. And we just embraced there. And, I said, be blessed today and have the best day that you can. And of course, I went on my way. But I thought, wow, what an encounter. What an encounter with a stranger. And if you look at the HEB, you find that kind of thing, sometimes more than at Lowe's or Tractor Supply or some other place that you go. We also find God in what I call, next please, the rearview mirror. Sometimes I have problems with faith in the present or the future. Like I have faith that this will happen, or I have faith that this will come to fruition. But my faith has a tendency to be looking backwards. Oh, there you were. Now I can see it. I didn't know what was happening, but now I see that you were there. And I think you've probably seen this poem. It's on all kinds of Hallmark cards, but it's worth noting because I think it's true. One night in a dream, I walked with the Lord on the beach. There were two footprints, mine and the Lord's. But during tough times, I just saw mine, and I wondered why. So I asked the Lord, why leave me alone when I was down? Why leave me alone when I was hurting? And the Lord said, my precious child, I never left you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you saw only one set of footprints in the sand, that was when I carried you. And that's God in the rearview mirror. And we do find God in adversity. Sometimes we have to look harder, or we have to look in different ways. We have to try to find that God was there. We may feel God's presence when things are going our way, when we feel our prayers are answered, or when at least we feel that they're heard. But what happens when bad things happen? What happens when we're taken to our knees? What happens when we can't find God in anything or anywhere? Sometimes we turn to bitterness. We become angry. We even may have disbelief. We may have desolation. We experience an alienation from everything that maybe we thought we knew about ourselves, about God, and the way God works. This is a personal crisis. It's like when bad things happen to you, to your community, just as we have experienced in the last month or so. I was talking with someone the other day, and they said, I feel such a heaviness in town. It's not really a dark cloud that hangs over us, because I think we are beginning to move through it into a different stage now, and we're beginning to feel, unless you were directly touched, that things are moving back to a new sense of normal. But how do we make sense of the horror that did happen? It happened to the landscape, to our friends, maybe to you directly, your neighbors. And this will stay with us for a long time. Rabbi Kushner, I told someone, I said, I'm speaking as a Catholic, and I'm going to quote a Catholic, and I'm going to quote two rabbis. So this is definitely an ecumenical service today. But Rabbi Kushner wrote a best-selling book back in the early 80s, and it was called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. I don't know if you're familiar with the book. It's profound, and it offers a lot of wisdom, I think. But he says, pain is the price we pay for being alive. When we understand that, our question will change from why do we feel pain to what do we do with our pain so that it becomes meaningful and not just pointless suffering. How can we turn all the painful experiences of our lives into what he calls birth pains or growing pains? Those are the kinds of pains that bring about something positive or even something hopeful. If you've had a child, you know that it's painful, but it's ultimately a good pain because it brings about something good, something hopeful. It changes lives for the better. If you work out, they used to say no pain, no gain, but it's a pain while you're doing it perhaps, but you become stronger or you become healthier. I had a friend that was a trainer, a physical trainer, and he did all kinds of things in his workout. And I said, "What's your favorite part?" And he said, "When it's over." And I think that's the way we feel sometimes about pain. It's, we're just enduring this, and whatever it may be, if it's post-surgical or you've had an accident of some kind, but we want to feel that it has some kind of meaning, that it takes us into the future instead of sticking us in the past. When bad things happen, the question should not be, why did God do this to me? Or even, why did God allow this to happen? Or why did God not prevent this from happening? If God is all-powerful, why didn't that happen? God didn't do this to you. God didn't make this happen. God didn't want this to happen. And God didn't sit silently back and just watch it happen. I've heard so many conversations over the last month about the flood and God. Even on insurance policies, I think acts of God, it will say. That bothers me. That bothers me. I would rather think of the acts of God as the beautiful sunrise, the sunset, the smile on a friend's face, not the acts of God like the terrible hurricanes and the earthquakes. And so it's easy to say, well, that's who we blame, because it's an act of God. God experiences it with us. That's the point. God suffers and weeps and hurts just as much as we do. Now, we may want more from God than that, and that's hard to come to terms with sometimes. Some people might even say that's limiting God. But the way of getting through those times is to believe that God is in this with us every step of the way, and it's through God's grace that we can find meaning in the suffering. Now, if you're the one suffering, or you're the one with the suffering, that's hard. That's hard. But nobody ever said this was easy or supposed to be easy. Kushner says, life has to be lived for something, not against something. If we try to find blame, if we try to point fingers, that's working against. Now this has happened, now what do I do? How do I give meaning to myself, but also meaning to whatever I feel has happened in my life? I've been thinking a lot about this and having conversations with people that were directly affected, as many of you might have been. Something in our human nature that makes us want to know why, and then we want an answer. Because if we have an answer, then we have a sense of control, and we can try to make sure it doesn't happen again. Someone asked me the other day, well, where was God in the Holocaust? I said, well, I wasn't there, I don't know, and it's hard to speak to it. But I, for myself, have to say God was there. He was with every single person. Whether they were afraid, whether they were faith-filled, that God was there with them. Otherwise, their lives didn't have meaning. It's 6 million deaths, and it has to go for something beyond that. A moment of levity. If you know the musical Fiddler on the Roof, Tevye is the lead character, and at one point he says, "Dear God, I know we're the chosen people, but why did you have to choose us?" Sometimes that's the way we feel. God is in the cancer ward. God is in the destruction in Gaza and Ukraine and every other place in the world where there's suffering and where people are broken. In 2003, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I had surgery. And I remember lying, I thought it was the breast cancer surgical floor, but obviously there were other people with other kinds of surgery. But in the dark of the night, you don't really hear any sounds. Maybe you hear the beeps if there's a cardiac machine. But the kind of surgery that I had and the kind of floor that I was on, they used the Doppler. If you know what a Doppler, it's a wand. I think if you ever had maybe a sonogram, it's something similar to that. But they would use this Doppler wand to rub over parts of your body to hear the sounds of your blood going through your veins to make sure that it was traveling the way it was supposed to. And the Doppler sound goes like that. And so all night long, it seemed, I could hear that sound all up and down the hall. And I thought, I'm not alone. You know, in my mind, I thought, think of all those women like me that are going through this. I later found out there was other people that had vascular surgeries, but the point is, I wasn't alone in my suffering. There were other people suffering there too. And I tell you what, one night I felt so strongly the presence of Jesus, I felt like I could have gotten up and walked out into the hall and seen him walking down the hall. I felt like he was stopping at every room. It was a very profound experience. Another scene similar to that, I have a friend who, she lost 2 children, and then when one of them was dying of a natural cause at about age 4, she was a member of a Compassionate Friends group in San Antonio, and she invited me to go just for support, I guess. And I went, and there was a room maybe twice this size, and it was filled with families and their terminally ill children. And some of them had, you could tell they had liver failure because they were very jaundiced. There were spina bifida babies. These were all very young children that were terminal. And the families were there, and they were talking and laughing and sharing food and diapering the child. And I just thought, wow, this should be such a place of grief and sadness and heaviness. And yet again, I felt if God is not here in this room, then he's not out there in the botanical garden where everything is beautiful and wonderful. We may want it to be different than that, but David Wolpe, who is another rabbi, writes, "Faith that asks religion to explain the phenomenon of the natural world is a faith doomed to irrelevance. Faith charts the course of a life. It does not map out the stars, and it does not tell us the age of the universe. Faith orients us in the cosmos, but it does not predict the weather." I thought that was really profound considering what we've been through, Why did God do this to us? Mostly, God is a God of relationship. God is a God of creation. I mean, wow, look around. The Hubble telescope tells us what's happening billions of miles away. And, the birth of a child and the beauty of nature. But mostly, God is a God of relationship. Us and our relationship with God, us and our relationship with one another, us and our relationship with us, with ourselves. But we still try to shape God and make God into what we want and what we're comfortable with and how we think things should work out. There's a wonderful story of a woman, she and her son, adult son, standing by the seashore. Beautiful scene. A huge wave comes and takes her son away. And she cries and she mourns and she prays to God. She's angry, and then she says, "Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Please bring my son back to me. Bring my son back to me." And another wave comes in and brings her son back to her, and he's fine. And she says, "Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you for this miracle." By the way, he was wearing a hat. In other words, you get the miracle of restoration, but wait a minute, where's the hat that he had on? I want that back too, Thank you, God, for restoring my health, but by the way, I can't pay my mortgage, so are you going to help me with that? We still want to bend him and shape him and make him into what we want him to be. He gives us another story, this Rabbi David Wolpe. He says, there was a man that reached out to God and said, "Dear God, there is so much pain and anguish in the world. Why don't you send us some help?" And God said, "I did. I sent you." Yeah. And isn't that true? I mean, have we not experienced that in this community? I mean, the thousands of people that left their homes and their families and their jobs to come, and some of them are still here. Mercy Chefs is still out there making food for anybody that wants it. You don't have to say, I lost my house, you know. There's still teams searching. You know, there are people here to help people muck out mud and rip houses down to the studs. I mean, if God isn't here, drive to West Kerr County and see it and feel it. Next. I think I might have. Oh, okay, yes. There's hundreds of stories of courage and strength and faith from the past few weeks. You've probably seen them on TV. You've read about them. Maybe you've heard about them from people that you know. A former student of mine from many years ago, he's a contractor, a builder, and he lives out on the Guadalupe. And he and his wife heard the noise that night of the water, and their house was thankfully saved, but they heard screaming. And then they saw these two little girls get hung in a tree. And he and his son were able to grab them one at a time and bring them inside and dry them off. And he said, they kept on saying, take us back to our cabin. They thought that they were just maybe washed 20 feet away from their cabin. They were summer campers. He said they had no idea that they had come down the river, a mile. You probably saw the story on TV of the woman whose RV was washed away in Ingram, and she floated down to Comfort. That's almost 20 miles. Was found in a tree alive and survived. It's like, wow, how did that possibly happen? I mean, other stories. I heard a story yesterday of another little camper, an 8-year-old, floated down on her mattress until the mattress sunk, and she grabbed a hold of a tree and floated with the tree. She ended up in a debris field, and she was kind of on top of it, and she fell asleep. And when the morning sun came, she called out to somebody to help her. She had floated from, if you know the South Fork of the Guadalupe, she had floated from Camp Mystic to Camp La Junta. That's about 6 miles, and she survived. So there's lots of stories like that. We say to ourselves, wow, that was a miracle. That was a miracle. You are a miracle. I was telling somebody about the little girl that floated, and they said to me, God surely must have had a plan for her. You know, is she going to grow up to cure cancer or to become president? That leads me to ask the uncomfortable question. Does that mean that God didn't have plans for the ones that died? Does that mean that God denied a miracle to those 24 little girls from Camp Mystic? No, I have to say no. Otherwise, how can I get out of bed every day? No, God was there with them too, in their lives, and their lives had meaning, and they deserved a miracle. He has a plan for them. He gives us beauty and splendor and majesty and awe, and the making sense of it all is up to us. I don't think God really helps us make sense of it because we have to do that for ourselves. God gives us room to be human. And, you know, you learned being human at about age 2. It hurts when you fall down, but you get back up. You learn to walk, and then you learn to run. The point I want to make about all this, and it's a beautiful day, and I want us to end with beautiful feelings about God, but life is messy. It's messy and it's tragic. It's glorious and confusing and unpredictable and hurtful and exhilarating and short. When we have eyes that cannot see and ears that cannot hear, when we have hearts that cannot feel, when we do this, we lose the ability to be amazed by God and sense God's presence. So, how do we know that we're alive? I want you to, again, take that breath that you took before and make a sound as it comes out. And you go, ah. It's not A-H, it's A-W-E. It's awe. Every breath you take is awe. even if it's a breath in the middle of crying or laughing. It's awe. I wish I could promise you long, happy, successful lives, but you're in charge of that. You have to find your own way. I wish I could make sense of children being murdered while they sit in an elementary school, or how to make sense of the cruel power of nature that wipes out entire villages and towns in one fell swoop. But you have to find your own way on that. I wish I could make sense of loneliness, of cancer, of divorce, of fractured lives, of time wasted on substances that do no more than numb our sense of wonder and the whole experience. There was another day not too long ago when terror struck and buildings fell. Brian Doyle, a Catholic, wrote on September 11th, "One of the most impossible and memorable images of that day were people leaping out of windows. And to see that image of two people, co-workers, maybe strangers, I had no idea knowing, but it made it all the more poignant. There they were, reaching out for somebody's hand to take your last step, to end your life in the hand of a stranger. The couple leapt hand in hand. They reached for each other, their hands met, and they jumped. And I try to whisper prayers for the sudden death and the harrowed families and the screaming souls of the murderers, but I keep coming back to his hand in hers, nestled in each other with such extraordinary naked love. It's the most powerful prayer I can imagine. It's the most eloquent and graceful. It makes me believe that we're not fools to believe in God, to think that human beings have greatness and holiness in them, like seeds that only open under fire, to believe that who we are persists past what we were, to believe that love is why we are here." Yeah. Even more recently, there was a bus filled with young campers. They had just been rescued from their campgrounds by Black Hawk helicopters. They boarded a bus. It was to take them to a reunification center to meet their parents and their loved ones. And as they drove through their beloved camp and all its destruction and devastation, they looked out in silence. These were 10, 12, 15-year-old girls. They didn't cry. They didn't ask why. But suddenly, and without any prompting, they all began to sing, and they were singing the same song. It was a song of good times by the river they loved. It was a song of faith and praise and worship. It was a song they learned at camp, where life is innocent and pure, filled with friendship and sweat and time to heal oneself and time to compete and time to sit silently together to enjoy the best that creation has to offer. It was a place where they swam, where they listened to the rain, and they enjoyed simple things. And they sang. They sang a song. Do you have it? Yes. Let's see it.
It's fresh like spring. We want to pass it on. For you, my friend, this happiness that I found. Can't depend on it. It matters not where you're bound. I'll shout it from the mountaintops. Praise God! I want my world to know the Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on. I'll shout it from the mountaintops. Praise God! I want my world to know the Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on. It's fresh like.
So God was on the bus that day, and God is with every one of us every moment. Take a breath, say ah, and know that God is there.
Only takes a spark to get a fire going, and soon all those around can warm up to its glow. You want to pass it on. What a wondrous time is spring, when all the trees are budding, the birds begin to sing, the flowers start their blooming. That's how it is with God's love. Once you've experienced it, you want to sing. It's fresh like spring. You want to pass it on. I'll shout it from the mountaintop. I want to tell the world to know the Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia. That was an amazing lesson. Whew. Okay. Welcome, first-timers. If this is your first time at Unity, we're glad you're here. We hope that you find this to be a place of like-minded people and a place to belong. We teach spiritual tools that can help you no matter what is going on in your life. If you'd like, an usher can bring you a welcome packet, or you can grab one on your way out. Please fill out the contact form if you wish to be a part of our weekly email newsletter. We now have an opportunity to support our spiritual cooperative. As we prepare our gifts, we recognize that giving is an act of love, faith, and spiritual connection. Please bless what you are giving now and join us in our offering affirmation. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. I send it forth with my blessings and my love.
Freely, freely I have received. Freely, freely I give. Divine love through me blesses all that I am, all that I give and receive. Freely, freely you may receive. Freely, freely I give. Divine love through me blesses all that I am, all that I give and receive.
We open our hearts in gratitude as we release these donations. We send these gifts forward through our congregation and into our world, blessing all that it affects. Thank you. The Community Crystal Bowl Sound Healing Circle will be every third Saturday of the month, so it's coming this Saturday at 10 a.m. Join us to connect with others in a sacred circle of love and peace, to hold space for the victims of the flood while releasing feelings of grief and trauma. Come experience an hour of high vibration, sonic wave cleansing sounds from crystal bowls, chimes, tuning forks, and a wave drum as we calm our hearts and minds, offering healing through healing thoughts and prayers to the Hill Country. It's open to everyone and with a love offering appreciated. Later this month, we will be offering healing meditation circles following the Sunday service at 1 p.m. Join us in a sacred ritual of intention setting, heart-centered healing, and relaxation. Light refreshments will be provided following the service, so we hope to see you there. We've reached the end of our gathering. Yes.
We have a donation from our guest here, Philip. He's an artist. And if you want to look at painting, he donated to.
Yeah. Hold that up. Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
that on.
Wait.
All right. Beautiful.
Wow, it's beautiful. Thank
you.
you, Philip. We appreciate it. Beautiful. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. We've reached the end of our gathering. Please rise, circle up, and join hands. We'll sing the peace song and do the prayer for protection.
Namaste, everybody.